Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're truly thankful for your continued support. Quick question for our viewers. Which country or city are you watching from? We love knowing how far these stories reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Family Foundations. Mason Hayes stood motionless in his father's study, his attention fixed on the tablet screen before him. The security footage from the Stallion Bar played out with brutal clarity. Sarah, his ex-wife, stumbling through the exit, her arm wrapped around Ryan Cooper's waist. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m., their regular Friday night routine unchanged after 5 years. He set the tablet down on his father's mahogany desk, straightening his Italian silk tie. Through the study's window, he could see the celebration in full swing across the sprawling Montana ranch. His son Tommy's laughter carried across the yard as the 8-year-old chased his cousins around the carefully manicured lawn. Still keeping tabs on them? Derek Walsh's voice cut through Mason's thoughts. The sheriff moved into the study, closing the door behind him. His badge caught the afternoon light as he approached. Old habits, Mason replied, his voice neutral, though I didn't expect their routine to stay so predictable. Derek leaned against the desk, his expression softening as he watched Tommy through the window. Your boy's growing up fast. Sir did a number on you, man. Nobody saw that coming. Mason's jaw tightened at the mention of her name. The betrayal from 5 years ago felt fresh. Discovering Sarah's affair with Ryan Cooper, his business partner and supposed best friend since childhood. They'd grown up together in the same working-class neighborhood, sharing dreams of building something greater than their humble beginnings. I need to tell you something, Derek said, his tone shifting to something more serious. I've been keeping an eye on things while you were gone, and there's more you should know. Mason turned to face his old friend fully. What is it? Your parents. Derek paused, choosing his words carefully. They've been involved with Sarah's new kids. School visits, sports games, gifts. But that's not all. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through some documents. 6 months ago, they transferred Tommy's college fund, split it between Sarah's 3 children with Ryan. The revelation hit Mason like a physical blow, but his expression remained carefully controlled. Show me? Derek handed over his phone, displaying bank transfer records and legal documents. I came across this during a separate investigation. Thought you should know. Mason scrolled through the documents, each detail adding to the weight in his chest. His parents had systematically pushed Tommy aside while embracing Sarah's new family. The memory of their testimony during the custody battle suddenly took on a darker meaning. Their claims about his unstable work schedule had helped Sarah secure primary custody. A knock at the study door interrupted their conversation. Linda Hayes, Mason's mother, stepped in wearing an elegant blue dress suitable for her 40th wedding anniversary celebration. Mason, dear, we're about to make the announcement, she said, her smile faltering slightly when she saw Derek. Sheriff Walsh, I didn't realize you were here. Just catching up with an old friend, Mrs. Hayes, Derek replied, nodding politely as he moved toward the door. He paused beside Mason, speaking low enough that Linda couldn't hear. Watch yourself. There's more to this than meets the eye. Mason followed his mother out to the main gathering, where Richard Hayes stood ready to address their guests. The couple had always maintained a carefully curated image in the community, and today was no exception. Friends and family, Richard began, raising a champagne glass. Linda and I are blessed to celebrate 40 years of marriage surrounded by those we hold dear. To mark this milestone, we're planning a Mediterranean cruise. He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd, but notably skipping over Tommy. Just immediate family, of course. Linda beamed beside him. We leave in 2 weeks. It'll be a chance for real family bonding. Mason watched Tommy's expression fall, the boy's excitement at the announcement crumbling as he processed his grandmother's words. He excused himself from the gathering, following his son, who had slipped away from the crowd. He found Tommy in his old bedroom, sitting on the bed with tears streaming down his face. The room remained exactly as Mason had left it years ago, a shrine to a past his parents seemed determined to forget. Hey, buddy, Mason said softly, sitting beside his son. Want to talk about it? Tommy wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Grandma said I can't go on the trip, he whispered. She said I'm not really family anymore. Mason pulled his son close, rage building beneath his composed exterior. Listen to me, Tommy. You are my family. You will always be my family. Nothing and no one can change that. But why don't they want me? Tommy's voice cracked. What did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong, Mason assured him, his mind already working through the implications of what he'd learned. Sometimes adults make mistakes, big ones. But none of this is your fault. As he held his son, Mason could hear the party continuing below. His parents' laughter drifted up, along with the chatter of guests celebrating their perfect family image. The contrast between that carefully maintained facade and the reality of their cruelty toward their own grandson crystallized something in Mason's mind. He pulled back slightly, looking at Tommy's tear-stained face. How about we do something special, just the two of us? Instead of their crews, we could go anywhere you want. Tommy's eyes brightened slightly. Really? Could we go to that dinosaur museum in Canada you told me about? The Royal Tyrrell Museum? Absolutely. Mason smiled, already planning how to turn this rejection into something positive for his son. We'll make it an adventure. Later that evening, as the party wound down, Mason overheard his parents speaking with some remaining guests in the kitchen. It's such a shame about Mason's situation, Linda sighed. But Sarah and Ryan have built such a wonderful family. Those children are a blessing. The Cooper name means something in this community, Richard added. We have to think about the family's reputation. Mason stepped into the kitchen, causing conversation to halt abruptly. Don't let me interrupt, he said smoothly. Please, continue explaining how the Cooper name means more than your own grandson. Mason, Linda started, but he held up a hand. Save it. Tommy and I are leaving. Thank you for making your priorities so clear. As they drove away from the ranch, Mason glanced in the rearview mirror at his exhausted son, sleeping in the back seat. The day had revealed the true depth of betrayal he faced, not just from Sarah and Ryan, but from his own parents who had chosen to reject their grandson in favor of maintaining their social standing. His phone buzzed with a text from Derek. There's more you need to know. Meet tomorrow. Mason sent a quick affirmative response, his mind already working through the implications of everything he'd learned. The confident, successful man who had returned to Montana wasn't the same broken person who'd fled. This time he had resources, connections, and most importantly, nothing left to lose except Tommy. He pulled into their driveway, carrying his sleeping son inside. As he tucked Tommy into bed, Mason made a silent promise. The people who had hurt his son would learn that their actions carried consequences, and the perfect little world they'd built on the foundation of his destruction was about to crumble. Chapter 2: Broken Mirrors. The morning sun had barely cleared the mountains when Mason's doorbell rang. He opened it to find Diane Cooper standing on his porch, her presence as unexpected as the flash drive she held in her trembling hand. We need to talk, she said, her voice carrying the weight of years of accumulated pain. About Sarah and Ryan. Mason stepped aside, letting Ryan's ex-wife enter his home. She moved with the careful precision of someone who had learned to navigate broken glass, both literally and metaphorically. In the kitchen, she declined his offer of coffee, instead placing the flash drive on the counter between them. They destroyed both our families, Diane said, her fingers drumming nervously against the granite countertop. I've been gathering evidence for years, waiting for the right moment. When I heard you were back in town, Mason picked up the drive, turning it over in his hands. What's on this? Videos mostly. Recordings of them laughing about how they fooled everyone. There's footage of them coaching their kids, teaching them how to treat Tommy at school. Diane's voice cracked. My own children, Mason. They turned my own children into weapons. He connected the drive to his laptop, and together they watched as Sarah and Ryan's true faces emerged through dozens of video clips. In one, they sat in their living room, wine glasses in hand, mocking Mason's reaction to discovering their affair. In another, they carefully edited footage of Mason's angry confrontations, manipulating the videos to paint him as unstable and dangerous. They showed these to your parents, Diane explained, to Tommy's teachers, to anyone who might question their version of events. They created this narrative of you as the unstable ex-husband, the failed businessman who couldn't handle his wife's success. Mason's hands clenched into fists as he watched Sarah instructing her children how to exclude Tommy at school. "Don't play with him," she said in the video. "Remember, he's not really your brother. His daddy is a bad man who wants to hurt your father." "How did you get these?" Mason asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. Ryan got sloppy after they moved into the new house. Left his cloud storage logged in on our old shared computer. Diane's laugh held no humor. He always did think he was smarter than everyone else. Their conversation was interrupted by Tommy's footsteps on the stairs. Mason quickly closed the laptop as his son entered the kitchen, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Good morning, Dad." Tommy paused when he saw their visitor. "Hi, Mrs. Cooper." "Hello, Tommy." Diane smiled warmly. "You've grown so much since I last saw you." Mason moved to prepare breakfast, keeping one eye on his son while his mind processed everything he'd learned. "Hey, buddy, how about some pancakes?" As he cooked, Diane engaged Tommy in conversation about school and his interests, her genuine warmth a stark contrast to the calculated cruelty they'd just witnessed in the videos. When Tommy left to get ready for his weekend baseball practice, Diane's expression hardened again. "There's more," she said quietly. "They've been filing anonymous reports with Child Protective Services. Every scrape, every bruise Tommy gets from normal kid activities, they spin it into evidence of neglect." Mason set the spatula down carefully, his movements controlled despite the rage building inside him. "How do you know this?" "My sister works for CPS." She recognized Sarah's writing style in the reports, but without proof. Diane shrugged. "They're careful, Mason. They've built this perfect image while systematically destroying anyone who might threaten it." The sound of Tommy coming back downstairs prompted them to pause their conversation again. Mason helped his son gather his baseball gear, maintaining a facade of normalcy while his mind worked through the implications of everything he'd learned. "I'll drive you to practice," he told Tommy. "Mrs. Cooper and I need to finish discussing some business anyway." During the drive to the baseball field, Mason watched through the rearview mirror as Tommy stared out the window, unusually quiet. "Everything okay, buddy?" he asked. Tommy turned to meet his father's eyes in the mirror. "Dad, why do Amy and the others say mean things about you at school? They used to be nice to me, but now..." Mason's grip tightened on the steering wheel as he remembered the videos of Sarah coaching her children. "Sometimes people change, Tommy, but that's their problem, not yours. You just focus on being yourself? Okay." After dropping Tommy off, Mason drove Diane to her office, their conversation continuing in low, intense tones. "They're planning something big," Diane revealed. "Ryan's been meeting with investors, throwing your name around. They're using your parents' connections to secure loans, presenting themselves as the victims of your supposed harassment." Mason absorbed this information, adding it to the growing picture of Sarah and Ryan's manipulation. "My parents are playing right into their hands, aren't they? They've convinced your mother and father that they're the wrong parties, that you're the threat to the family's reputation." Diane pulled out her phone, showing him photos of Sarah and Ryan at various social events with his parents. "They've been systematically replacing you in your parents' lives, and Tommy, they're erasing him." Mason finished, the pieces falling into place, making room for their perfect new family. Back at his house, Mason spent hours reviewing the evidence Diane had collected. Each video, each document revealed new layers of Sarah and Ryan's deception. They hadn't just betrayed him. They'd orchestrated a complete character assassination, turning his own family against him while positioning themselves as the victims. His phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Got the information you asked for. It's worse than we thought. Your parents have been meeting with adoption lawyers." Mason's blood ran cold as he read the message. A quick search confirmed his fears. His parents were preparing to legally adopt Sarah's children with Ryan, effectively replacing Tommy in the family line. The adoption papers would give Sarah's kids claim to the Hayes family trust while excluding his son entirely. He leaned back in his chair, letting the full weight of the betrayal sink in. They hadn't just stolen his wife, his best friend, and his parents' love. They were trying to erase his son's very existence in the family. The sound of a car pulling into his driveway drew his attention. Through the window, he watched Tommy climb out of his baseball coach's car, his small shoulders slumped in defeat. Mason met him at the door, immediately noticing the redness around his son's eyes. "What happened?" he asked, kneeling to his son's level. "Amy and Jack were at practice," Tommy said, referring to Sarah's children. "They told everyone you're a bad person who hurts people. Nobody would play with me." Mason pulled his son into a hug, feeling Tommy's tears soak into his shirt. In that moment, his cold anger crystallized into something harder, more focused. Sarah and Ryan hadn't just destroyed his life. They were actively working to destroy his son's. Later that night, after Tommy had gone to bed, Mason sat in his study making phone calls. First to Marcus Rodriguez, his former squad mate now working as a private investigator. Then to Rachel Sullivan, the brilliant attorney who'd harbored feelings for him since high school. Finally, to his estranged sister Jenny, who had her own reasons to distrust their parents' manipulations. As he worked, Mason pulled up the corporate records of his various shell companies, construction enterprises he'd built in secret while Sarah and Ryan thought they'd destroyed him. Each piece of his empire had been carefully positioned, waiting for the right moment. "They want to play happy families?" he muttered, reviewing the evidence Diane had provided. "Let's see how their perfect world holds up under pressure." Chapter 3. Calculated Moves. The revelation about Marcus and Lisa's relationship came during an unexpected encounter at the Copper Bean, a small coffee shop on the outskirts of town. Mason had chosen the location for its discretion, away from the usual haunts of Sarah and Ryan's social circle. He didn't expect to find his military buddy Marcus already there, sitting intimately close to Lisa Thompson, the realtor who'd helped Sarah and Ryan build their property portfolio. "Mason," Marcus said, starting to rise, but Mason waved him back down. "Don't let me interrupt," he said, noting the way Lisa's hand rested on Marcus's arm. "Though I have to admit, this is an interesting development." Lisa glanced around the nearly empty coffee shop before leaning forward. "They've been using your parents' connections," she said without preamble, "presenting themselves as victims of your harassment to secure loans. The sympathy angle opens a lot of doors in this town." Mason settled into a chair at their table, his expression neutral despite the surge of anger her words provoked. "Tell me everything." Over the next hour, Lisa detailed how Sarah and Ryan had manipulated their way through Montana's business community. They'd crafted a narrative of perseverance in the face of Mason's supposed hostility, using his parents' influence to validate their story. "Your mother especially," Lisa explained, stirring her now-cold coffee. "She tells everyone how they've risen above your attempts to destroy them. It's become quite the inspiring tale in certain circles." Marcus reached across the table, sliding a USB drive toward Mason. "We've been documenting everything. Bank records, loan applications, social events where they've spread their version of events." "How long have you two been working on this?" Mason asked, pocketing the drive. "Since I noticed the pattern in their property acquisitions," Lisa replied. "The timing of their purchases, the way they always seemed to know exactly when certain properties would become available. It wasn't just luck. They were using inside information, your parents' connections, to get advance notice of prime opportunities. And your parents seemed eager to help them succeed," Marcus added, his military training evident in his precise, measured tone. "It's like they're trying to replace you with a more palatable version of success." Mason's phone buzzed, a text from Rachel Sullivan. The attorney's message was brief but alarming. CPS reports. "Multiple anonymous complaints. Need to meet ASAP." "I have to go," Mason said, standing. "But keep gathering information." "And Lisa, thank you. I know helping me could complicate things for you professionally." Lisa's expression hardened. "They've manipulated enough people in this town. Someone needs to show their true colors." 20 minutes later, Mason sat in Rachel's office, reviewing the stack of CPS reports she'd obtained. Each complaint was meticulously crafted to paint a picture of neglect without crossing into obvious false allegations. "They're building a paper trail," Rachel explained, her legal training evident in her systematic breakdown of the situation. "A scraped knee from baseball becomes concerning injuries. A tired day at school becomes signs of emotional distress. None of the individual reports are serious enough to trigger an investigation. But together, they're creating a pattern." Mason finished, his jaw tight. "Something they can use against me if I try to challenge the custody arrangement." Rachel nodded, pushing her glasses up with a practice gesture. There's more. Jenny called me this morning. She found something in your parents' study, adoption paperwork. Mason's hands stilled on the documents. For Sarah's kids? Your parents are planning to legally adopt them, effectively replacing Tommy in the family line. The papers would give Sarah's children claim to the Hayes family trust while excluding Tommy entirely. The revelation hit Mason with physical force, though his expression remained controlled. How did Jenny get access to this? Your parents trust her, Rachel explained. She's the good daughter who stayed close to home, remember? They have no idea she's been watching them, documenting their behavior toward Tommy. Mason stood, moving to the window that overlooked the town's main street. In the distance, he could see the Hayes construction headquarters, the company his father had built from nothing. The same company Sarah and Ryan had tried to take from him during the divorce. I need you to prepare custody modification paperwork, he said finally. But don't file it yet. Let's see how they react to the other pieces moving into place first. Rachel's voice softened slightly. Mason, are you sure about this? Once you start, they're hurting my son. He cut her off, turning back to face her. Every day, every week, they're chipping away at his sense of belonging, his sense of family. I won't stand by and watch them destroy him. Later that evening, Mason sat in his home office, surrounded by documents and evidence. His military training had taught him the importance of understanding the enemy before engaging. Sarah and Ryan had spent years building their narrative, positioning themselves as the victims while systematically destroying his reputation and relationships. His phone lit up with a message from Jenny. Parents planning trust fund announcements for Sarah's kids at the anniversary cruise. Nothing for Tommy. The final piece clicked into place. They weren't just trying to erase his son. They were planning to publicly cement his exclusion from the family legacy. Mason opened his laptop, accessing the hidden records of his business empire. While Sarah and Ryan thought they'd destroyed him, he'd been building something far more substantial than they could imagine. Shell companies, strategic investments, carefully positioned assets, all waiting for the right moment. A knock at his office door interrupted his thoughts. Tommy stood there in his pajamas, clutching the stuffed dinosaur Mason had bought him during their last museum trip. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course, buddy. Come here. Mason closed his laptop as Tommy climbed into his lap. Why do Grandma and Grandpa love Amy and Jack and Katie more than me? The question was asked with the devastating directness only a child could manage. Mason held his son closer, feeling the tremor in the small body that betrayed Tommy's contained tears. They're making bad choices, buddy. But I promise you, it's not because of anything you did wrong. But Mom says... What did Mom say? Mason kept his voice gentle, though his hand tightened on the chair's armrest. She said if I was a better kid, maybe everyone would want me around more. Tommy's voice was barely a whisper. The words crystallized something in Mason's chest, a cold, implacable resolve that would reshape everyone's lives. Sarah and Ryan hadn't just betrayed him. They were actively working to break his son's spirit. As he held Tommy until the boy fell asleep, Mason's mind worked through the pieces he'd gathered. Diane's evidence of their manipulation. Lisa's revelation about their business practices. Rachel's discovery of the CPS reports. Jenny's intelligence about their plans for the family trust. He carried Tommy to bed, tucking him in with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the hardness in his eyes. Tomorrow, he would begin implementing the plan he'd spent years crafting. Sarah, Ryan, and even his own parents would learn that their actions carried consequences. But tonight, watching his son sleep peacefully, Mason allowed himself to feel the full weight of their betrayal. They tried to destroy him once before, and he'd used that pain to build something stronger. This time, they'd made an even bigger mistake. They'd hurt his son. The game they'd started would end very differently than they imagined. Chapter 4. Opening Moves. Andrea Martinez sat across from Mason in his home office, her credentials spread between them on the desk. Her resume showed an impressive combination of teaching experience and child psychology expertise, but it was her direct approach that caught Mason's attention. Mr. Hayes, I've reviewed Tommy's academic records, she said, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses. The pattern of emotional stress is clear in his work. His grades drop after family events or interactions with his half-siblings. Mason leaned forward. Can you help him? Yes, but I need to be clear about something. Andrea met his gaze steadily. If I take this position, I'll be documenting everything I observe. Not just Tommy's progress, but any signs of emotional manipulation or abuse from family members. Are you prepared for what that documentation might reveal? That's exactly why I want to hire you, Mason replied. Tommy needs support, but he also needs someone who can professionally document what they're doing to him. Andrea nodded, pulling out a notebook. I should warn you, I've worked with similar cases. Children often internalize family rejection, blaming themselves. Tommy might resist opening up at first. Whatever it takes, Mason said. Just help my son. The next day, Tommy sat nervously in their living room as Andrea unpacked educational materials. Your dad tells me you like dinosaurs, she said, pulling out a book about paleontology. Tommy's eyes lit up slightly. Yeah, we went to a museum in Canada. The Royal Tyrrell? Andrea smiled at his surprised nod. I've been there. What was your favorite exhibit? As Tommy began describing the dinosaur displays, Andrea watched his body language shift from guarded to animated. She made notes about his emotional responses, particularly when mentioning family members who had declined to join the museum trip. Across town, Lisa Thompson strategically positioned herself at her regular table in the Copper Bean, knowing several of her most gossipy clients would be there for their morning coffee. It's just heartbreaking, she said, pitching her voice to carry just enough. The way they've been borrowing money from Mrs. Henderson, you know, that sweet elderly woman on Pine Street, using their sob story about Mason to gain her sympathy, then leveraging her property for loans. The reaction was immediate. Martha Whitaker, president of the local garden club, leaned in. Sarah and Ryan Cooper? But they seem so. Appearances can be deceiving, Lisa sighed, sliding copies of loan documents partially out of her folder. I hate to spread rumors, but as a realtor, I have a responsibility to protect vulnerable clients. By afternoon, the whispers had spread through Montana's tight-knit business community. Lisa received 3 calls from other elderly clients asking about the Cooper's loan practices. Meanwhile, Mason implemented another piece of his plan. The Mountain View Youth Sports Program, which Sarah's children participated in, received an anonymous corporate donation. The timing coincided perfectly with the current director's unexpected job offer in Seattle. Diane Cooper walked into the program's board meeting with impeccable credentials and a detailed proposal for expanding youth activities. Her appointment as the new director was unanimous. Mom, guess what? Amy Cooper burst into their kitchen that evening. Mrs. Cooper is running the sports program now. Can I still participate? Sarah nearly dropped her wine glass. Diane? Ryan's ex-wife, Diane? She seems really nice, Amy continued. She said she remembers teaching me to swim when I was little. Ryan entered the kitchen, his face darkening at the mention of his ex-wife. She's not to be trusted. She's probably working with Mason. But why would that matter? Amy asked innocently. You always say Uncle Mason is the one who can't be trusted. Sarah and Ryan exchanged worried glances, their carefully constructed narrative showing its first crack. Hayes International's bid for the new county infrastructure project landed on Sarah and Ryan's desk like a bomb. The proposal demonstrated resources and connections they hadn't known Mason possessed. This is impossible, Ryan muttered, flipping through the documentation. He was supposed to be finished in this town. Where did he get this kind of backing? Sarah paced their office. Your sources said he was struggling in Seattle, that he barely had enough work to support himself and Tommy. They were wrong, Ryan admitted. Look at these financials. He's been building something big, right under our noses. As Cooper Construction lost project after project to Hayes International's superior bids, the strain began showing in their relationship. Their confident smiles at business functions grew strained, their united front developing hairline fractures. Jenny's infiltration of their parents' inner circle proved invaluable. They're planning to set up trust funds for Sarah's kids, she reported to Mason over a secure line. The paperwork will be finalized during the cruise. Nothing for Tommy, of course. Mason absorbed this information, adding it to his mental chessboard. Keep watching them. I need to know about any changes in their plans. The pieces were in motion. Andrea documented Tommy's emotional progress and the subtle abuse from his grandparents. Lisa's strategic gossip eroded Sarah and Ryan's business reputation. Diane gained legitimate access to their children, gathering evidence of their manipulations. Anne Hayes International's aggressive expansion stripped away their professional facade. Mason watched it all from his office, each move calculated to apply pressure without revealing his ultimate strategy. The game had begun, and his opponents hadn't yet realized they were playing. Chapter 5: Pressure Points. Sarah's kitchen erupted in chaos as Amy slammed her bedroom door, the sound echoing through their carefully decorated home. Ryan paced the granite countertop island, his face flushed with anger. "She's been asking questions about Tommy again," Sarah said, gripping her coffee mug. "Wanted to know why we never told her he was her brother before the marriage." "This is Diane's doing," Ryan growled. "She's poisoning their minds during those damn sports practices." "Mom?" Jack, their middle child, appeared in the doorway. "Is it true what Amy said? About you making us be mean to Tommy at school?" Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she set down her mug. "Sweetheart, it's complicated. Tommy's father." "But he's nice to me," Jack interrupted. "When I saw him at the store with Tommy, he helped me reach the cereal on the top shelf. He didn't seem scary at all." Ryan slammed his hand on the counter. "Go to your room, Jack. Now!" As their son fled upstairs, Sarah turned on her husband. "Keep your voice down. Do you want the neighbors to hear?" "This is falling apart," Ryan hissed. "First the contract losses, now the kids questioning everything. Mason's behind this somehow." Their argument was interrupted by Amy's voice from upstairs. "I'm going to tell Tommy I'm sorry. You can't stop me." Meanwhile, at the Mountain View Country Club, Linda Hayes sat alone at her usual lunch table. The seats around her, normally filled with her social circle, remained conspicuously empty. Her phone buzzed with another email notification. Opening it, she found recordings of herself from last month's garden party. Margaret's grandchildren are completely out of control. Not like Sarah's kids, they know how to behave in public. Real family values, unlike some people I could mention. The audio continued, revealing dozens of similar comments about her friends' families. Each clip was followed by praise for Sarah's children, highlighting the contrast between her treatment of them and Tommy. Linda's hands shook as she deleted the email, but the damage was done. Her friends had received the same recordings. Decades of social connections withered under the exposure of her duplicity. Across town, Sarah and Ryan felt the constant presence of watchful eyes. Mason's construction consultants, former Special Forces operators, maintained their surveillance with professional precision. "There's another one," Sarah whispered to Ryan as they left a business lunch. A man in workman's clothes stood across the street, his attention too focused on his phone to be natural. "You're being paranoid," Ryan replied, but his neck was tense as they walked to their car. The pressure mounted as their business faced multiple challenges. An anonymous tip led to an IRS audit of Cooper Construction. Building inspectors appeared at their job sites with increasing frequency, finding violations that required expensive corrections. "The Anderson project is delayed again," Ryan announced, tossing papers onto their home office desk. "Equipment malfunction. Third time this month. And 6 more workers quit today," Sarah added. "All hired by our competitors." "This isn't coincidence, Ryan." "Of course it isn't. But we can't prove anything. Mason's too smart to leave evidence." Their attempt to secure emergency funding through Mason's parents backfired spectacularly. Rachel Sullivan's legal challenge to Richard and Linda's competency to manage assets sent shockwaves through the family. "What do you mean we can't access the credit line?" Ryan demanded over the phone. "Richard, we need that money to keep the business afloat." "Our hands are tied," Richard replied, his voice strained. "With the competency challenge, all major financial decisions are under review. You'll have to find funding elsewhere." The pressure revealed cracks in Sarah and Ryan's relationship. Their public appearances, once characterized by united confidence, began showing signs of strain. At a charity dinner, Sarah snapped at Ryan for talking too long to a potential investor's wife. Later, Ryan criticized Sarah's handling of their children's questions about Tommy, leading to a heated argument in the country club parking lot. Mason observed their deterioration from a distance, ensuring Tommy remained insulated from the chaos. Andrea's therapy sessions helped his son process his feelings about his half-sibling's sudden interest in connection. Amy tried to talk to me at school today, Tommy told Andrea during their session. She said she didn't know why they were supposed to be mean to me before. Andrea made careful notes. How did that make you feel? Confused. Dad says it's not my fault, but if they're being nice now, maybe it was my fault before? Your dad is right, Andrea assured him. Adults sometimes make choices that hurt children, but that's never the child's fault. The pressure continued mounting. Cooper Construction's projects faced delays and cost overruns. Their social standing eroded as Lisa's strategic revelations about their financial practices spread through the community. Sarah's children asked increasingly difficult questions about their treatment of Tommy. Mason watched it all through reports from his team, each piece of information confirming that his strategy was working. The perfect world Sarah and Ryan had built on the foundation of his destruction was cracking under the weight of truth. Chapter 6. Hidden Depths. The private investigator's office was cluttered with case files and coffee cups. Sarah and Ryan sat across from Mike Benson, their hired PI, as he presented his findings on Mason Hayes. He's been busy, Benson reported, spreading photos across his desk. Multiple construction projects across the Northwest, all through different shell companies. But here's where it gets interesting. He pointed to a series of transaction records. Money moving through offshore accounts, connections to military contractors, meetings with former Special Forces operators. Sarah leaned forward eagerly. This is perfect. We can use this to show he's unstable, maybe even dangerous. What they didn't know was that Marcus had carefully crafted each piece of evidence, leading them down a path of Mason's choosing. The offshore accounts were legitimate but explainable. The military connections were real but legal. Each discovery made them more confident in their ability to fight back. We should take this to Brad Wilson at the Herald, Ryan suggested. He's been looking for a story like this. Jenny sat in Brad Wilson's office at the Montana Herald, watching the journalist review the documents Sarah and Ryan had provided. Her role as a source for his investigation had evolved into something more personal, though Brad didn't yet realize he was part of a larger plan. Something doesn't add up, Brad mused, spreading the papers across his desk. Their story about Mason's harassment doesn't match the timeline of these business records. Jenny leaned forward, her expression concerned. What do you mean? According to Sarah and Ryan, Mason was financially ruined after the divorce. But these records show he was building successful businesses during that exact period. Brad ran a hand through his hair. And these complaints about his behavior, they're too perfect, too consistent. Maybe you should dig deeper, Jenny suggested. Look into their side of the story more carefully. The catalyst came unexpectedly. Amy Cooper was researching colleges online when she discovered something alarming. The trust fund her grandparents had promised, money she learned had originally been Tommy's, showed a zero balance. Mom! Her scream brought Sarah running. The college money, it's gone. Sarah's face paled as she looked at the account information. The funds had vanished, transferred through a series of complicated transactions she couldn't trace. The resulting argument with Ryan erupted in the lobby of First Montana Bank. You said this was handled, Sarah shouted, forgetting their location. You promised the money was secure. Keep your voice down, Ryan hissed, but it was too late. Their public masks slipped, revealing the ugly truth beneath their perfect facade. Customers pretended not to watch as Sarah jabbed a finger at Ryan's chest. First the business problems, then the kids asking questions. Now this? What else haven't you told me? Their performance was captured on smartphones, the footage spreading through social media within hours. The couple who had worked so hard to maintain their image as victims of Mason's supposed instability now appeared unhinged themselves. Meanwhile, Brad Wilson's investigation took an unexpected turn when he discovered discrepancies in Sarah and Ryan's version of events. The story they wanted him to write about Mason's obsessive revenge crumbled under basic fact-checking. Look at these, he showed Jenny a stack of documents. They claimed Mason harassed them constantly after the divorce, but he wasn't even in the state during those dates. And these allegations about his business practices? I can't find a single source willing to confirm them. Jenny's concern appeared genuine. What are you going to do? Keep digging. There's a story here, but I don't think it's the one they want me to tell. The weekend Tommy spent with his grandparents proved pivotal. Jenny had suggested the visit, knowing Richard and Linda couldn't resist showing off their relationship with Sarah's children. Hidden recording devices captured Linda's casual cruelty. "Of course we love you, Amy. You and your siblings are our real grandchildren now. Some people just don't fit into proper families." Richard's voice joined in. "The Hayes name means something in this community. We had to make choices to protect that reputation after what your mother went through with Mason." Tommy sat silently through dinner, watching his grandparents dote on his half-siblings while barely acknowledging his presence. Jenny's recordings captured everything. The subtle digs, the pointed exclusions, the clear message that he wasn't really family anymore. Later that night, in Mason's study, Tommy's question cut straight to the heart. "They're not our family anymore, are they, Dad?" Mason pulled his son close, feeling the boy's tears soak into his shirt. "Family isn't just about blood or names, buddy. It's about who loves you, who protects you, who puts you first, like you do." "Like I always will," Mason promised, his resolve strengthened by his son's pain. The revenge he'd planned wasn't just about his own healing anymore. It was about justice for Tommy, about showing his son that truth eventually defeats lies. The pieces were all in place now. Sarah and Ryan had taken his bait, convinced they could fight back against his supposed harassment. His parents had revealed their true nature, documented for all to see. The carefully crafted narrative they'd built around his destruction was unraveling, exposing the ugly truth beneath. Mason's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "They're planning something big for the cruise. Want to move up our timeline?" He looked at Tommy, now sleeping peacefully on the study's couch, and typed his response, "No. Let them think they're winning. The bigger they build themselves up, the harder they'll fall." Rachel completed his thought. "I'll have everything ready." The game was approaching its final moves, but his opponents still didn't realize they were playing by his rules. Their confidence in their ability to fight back was exactly what Mason had planned for. The perfect setup for their ultimate destruction. Chapter 7. Storm Breaking. Rachel Sullivan's office buzzed with activity as she reviewed the final pieces of evidence against Sarah and Ryan. Her team had uncovered their plan to use the Mediterranean cruise as cover for a hostile takeover of the Hayes family business. "They've arranged meetings with banking executives in 3 ports," she explained to Mason, spreading documents across her desk. "The paperwork's already drawn up to transfer controlling interest from your parents." Mason examined the documents. "And the trust fund transfers? Illegal from start to finish." Rachel pushed her glasses up, a habit from their high school days. "They used Richard and Linda's influence to access Tommy's accounts, but the actual transfers violated multiple banking regulations." A knock at the door interrupted them. Diane Cooper entered, holding a manila envelope. "You need to see this." "My contact at the embassy confirmed it. They've been inquiring about extended visas in Greece." Mason's phone vibrated with a text from Marcus. "Surveillance confirms. They're planning to stay overseas with the kids. One-way tickets booked under aliases." The pieces aligned perfectly with Mason's strategy. He turned to Rachel. "How fast can you get the emergency custody order?" "Judge Anderson is reviewing it now. With the evidence of their planned flight risk." Rachel's phone chimed. "That's him. We got it. Diane has temporary custody until a full hearing." Mason nodded to Diane. "You know what to do." The day of departure arrived. Mason watched through surveillance cameras as Sarah and Ryan approached the cruise ship terminal, their children in tow. His parents waited near the check-in counter, fawning over their real grandchildren. The first crack in their confident facade appeared when Diane Cooper emerged from the first-class passenger line, court documents in hand. Sarah spotted her first, grabbing Ryan's arm. "What is she doing here?" Their question was answered as 2 federal agents approached, flanking Diane. "Mrs. Cooper, Mr. Cooper, we need to see some documentation for the children." "What is this?" Ryan demanded, his voice rising. "These are our kids." Diane stepped forward, presenting the court order. "Actually, the court has granted me emergency temporary custody. Evidence was presented showing you planned to flee the country with them." Sarah's face contorted with rage. "You can't do this. Richard, Linda, tell them." But Mason's parents could only watch in horror as more federal agents approached them. Rachel's voice cut through the chaos. "Richard and Linda Hayes? We have evidence of your involvement in illegal financial transactions involving your grandson's trust fund. The scene devolved into chaos as Sarah screamed at the agents. Ryan demanded to see credentials, and their children watched in confusion. Dozens of passengers pulled out phones, recording the meltdown. "Mom, what's happening?" Amy asked, her voice trembling. "Why are there police?" "This is all Mason's fault," Sarah shrieked, her carefully maintained composure shattering. "He's trying to destroy our family." Linda attempted to intervene, but federal agents blocked her path. "Ma'am, please remain where you are. We have questions about certain financial transactions." Jenny, positioned strategically among the onlookers, ensured the country club crowd got front-row seats to the spectacle. She'd tipped off key gossips about exciting developments at the crew's departure. The final blow came as Brad Wilson pushed through the crowd, press credentials visible. "Mrs. Cooper, would you care to comment on the evidence of child manipulation detailed in tomorrow's exposé?" Sarah lunged for the journalist, but security intercepted her. Ryan's attempt to reach their children was blocked by federal agents. Through it all, phones recorded each moment, each breakdown, each revelation of their true nature. Mason watched the feeds from his office, Tommy safely at school with Andrea keeping watch. The carefully constructed facade of Sarah and Ryan's perfect family shattered in real time, broadcast across social media by eager witnesses. His phone buzzed with a message from Rachel. "Your parents are being processed now. The evidence of financial fraud is irrefutable." Another text, this one from Jenny. "Country club membership committee already calling emergency meeting. Looks like mom and dad's social standing isn't quite so secure anymore." The storm had broken exactly as planned, but Mason knew this was only the beginning. Sarah and Ryan wouldn't go down without a fight, and cornered predators were always most dangerous. Chapter 8. Scorched Earth. The security monitors in Mason's office showed Ryan Cooper's approach well before the actual break-in attempt. Marcus's team tracked him and 3 hired men as they circled the Hayes International Building at midnight. "They're moving exactly as predicted," Marcus reported through the comm system. Sarah's positioned as lookout in the car on 4th Street. Mason leaned back in his chair, watching multiple camera feeds. "Let them get inside. I want this documented properly." The security system recorded Ryan's manipulation of the backdoor lock, his confident stride through the darkened office, his triumphant expression as he reached Mason's private office. The moment he began accessing the computer, Marcus's team moved. Lights blazed to life as armed security emerged from hidden positions. Ryan's hired men fled, leaving him alone. He grabbed a letter opener from Mason's desk, brandishing it at the approaching officers. "This is private property," he shouted. "I'm a business owner in this community." Officer James Chun stepped forward, badge visible. "Mr. Cooper, you're breaking and entering. Drop the weapon." Instead, Ryan lunged, the letter opener slashing toward the officer. Chun deflected the attack with practiced ease, subduing Ryan as other officers moved in. The entire incident streamed live through the building's security system, including Ryan's assault on a police officer. Across town, Sarah paced their kitchen, waiting for news. The phone's ring shattered the silence. "Ryan's been arrested," their lawyer informed her. "Breaking and entering, assault on an officer. Bail hearing won't be until morning." Sarah slammed the phone down, her mind racing. She grabbed her keys, heading for Tommy's school. If Ryan couldn't destroy the evidence, she'd handle things her way. Andrea Martinez sat in her office at Mountain View Elementary, reviewing her notes on Tommy's progress, when the secretary buzzed her. "Ms. Martinez, Sarah Cooper is demanding to see her son. She's causing quite a scene in the front office." Andrea activated her phone's recording function as she headed to the office. She found Sarah arguing with the school principal, her voice rising hysterically. "He's turned them all against me. My own children won't speak to me because of his manipulation." "Mrs. Cooper," Andrea interrupted smoothly, "Tommy isn't your son anymore. You surrendered those rights years ago." "You?" Sarah spun toward her. "You're part of this, filling my children's heads with lies." Andrea pulled out her tablet, queuing up a specific video. "You mean like this?" She played the recording of Sarah coaching her children. "Remember, Tommy's dad is dangerous. Don't play with him at school." Tell your teachers if you see him hanging around. The principal's face hardened as she watched the video. Mrs. Cooper, I've seen enough. You're banned from school property. If you return, we'll call the police. Sarah's composure cracked completely. You can't do this. I'm the victim here. Mason Hayes destroyed my life. No, the principal replied firmly. The evidence suggests you've been the one destroying lives. Please leave before I call security. That evening, Richard and Linda Hayes attempted damage control, summoning the family to their ranch. The gathering turned volatile almost immediately. We need to present a united front, Linda insisted, her social coordinator voice in full effect. The community looks to us for what, Mom? Jenny interrupted. For how to emotionally abuse your grandchild. For how to help steal his college fund. Richard slammed his hand on the table. We did what was necessary to protect the family name. Protect it? Mason's voice cut through the tension. You destroyed it. And for what? To replace your grandson with Sarah's perfect little family. Amy, who had insisted on attending despite her parents' objections, stood up. I have something you all need to hear. She pulled out her phone, her hand shaking slightly. I've been recording things. The way Mom and Ryan talk when they think we're not listening. The room fell silent as Amy played the recordings. Sarah and Ryan's voices filled the space, laughing about manipulating the Hayes family, mocking Mason's pain, planning how to use the children as weapons in their scheme. Linda's face crumbled as she heard herself praised for choosing the right grandchildren. Richard's expression hardened as Ryan discussed plans to strip the Hayes Construction Company for parts once they gained control. Turn it off, Linda whispered, but Amy wasn't finished. There's more, the 12-year-old said, her voice stronger now. They told us horrible things about Uncle Mason and Tommy, made us be cruel to them, but it was all lies. Mason watched his parents carefully maintain facade crack as their chosen replacement family crumbled before their eyes. Years of manipulation and lies unraveled in a single evening, exposed by the very children they tried to use as pawns. Chapter 9. Phoenix Rising. The Montana Construction Association's annual gala transformed into the final battlefield. Mason stood at the podium, addressing the gathered industry leaders and social elite, while Sarah and Ryan made their desperate last stand. You've all heard rumors, Mason began, his voice carrying through the ballroom, about family conflicts, business disputes, personal vendettas. Tonight, you'll hear the truth. Sarah and Ryan burst through the doors, their remaining allies, mostly distant business acquaintances who hadn't yet abandoned them, trailing behind. The truth? Sarah's voice rang out. The truth is you're obsessed. You've systematically destroyed our lives. Mason smiled slightly, pressing a button on the remote in his hand. The ballroom screens came to life, displaying carefully curated video clips. The audience watched in stunned silence as the evidence unfolded. Sarah and Ryan mocking the Hayes family's trust in them. Their careful coaching of their children to reject Tommy. Their manipulation of elderly clients for financial gain. Stop this. Ryan moved toward the stage, but security blocked his path. Keep watching, Mason instructed the crowd. See how they built their success. More footage played. Their midnight meetings planning to strip the Hayes Company assets. Their laughter at successfully turning his parents against their own grandson. Their calculated destruction of his reputation. Lisa Thompson stepped forward, adding her evidence to the display. They planned to use the Hayes family reputation to secure contracts, then deliberately bankrupt the company for insurance money. The proof was in their own documents, which they showed Richard and Linda while convincing them to sign over control. The audience murmured as bank records and loan documents appeared on screen, showing the complex web of fraud Sarah and Ryan had woven. Ryan snapped. He pulled a knife from his jacket, charging toward Mason. I'll end this now. Mason's military training took over. He deflected Ryan's attack, disarming him with precise movements that left his attacker sprawled on the stage. Security rushed in as Sarah tried to flee, only to find Diane and Jenny blocking her escape routes. The gathered crowd witnessed their final meltdown, phones recording as Montana's social elite saw the true face of the couple who had claimed Mason's persecution for so long. Chapter 10. Rebirth. 1 year later, The Hayes International Ballroom hosted a different kind of gathering. The Children's Future Foundation's inaugural gala brought together families affected by parental alienation, offering support and hope. Tommy, now more confident and self-assured, approached the podium. At 14, he spoke with a maturity born from experience. When I was younger, I thought family was about names and blood ties, he began, addressing the gathered crowd. I thought something was wrong with me because my grandparents chose other children over me. My mother's new family taught their kids to bully me at school. But I learned something important. Real family is about love, protection, and truth. Mason watched proudly as his son continued, Rachel's hand clasped in his. Their marriage 6 months ago had brought unexpected healing to both families. Rachel's legal expertise now served the Foundation's mission, helping other children facing similar situations. Sarah and Ryan's attempts to start fresh in other states had failed. Their digital footprint followed them, the evidence of their actions preventing them from rebuilding their facade of respectability. Richard and Linda Hayes sat in the audience, their presence both a testament to change and a reminder of consequences. Their relationship with Tommy was being rebuilt slowly, through carefully supervised visits and genuine attempts to understand the damage they'd caused. Jenny and Brad's series on parental alienation had won regional journalism awards, bringing needed attention to an often overlooked issue. Their personal relationship had blossomed alongside their professional collaboration. After the speeches, Tommy joined Mason and Rachel on the balcony. Amy and her siblings, now regular visitors through Diane's shared custody arrangement, played with other children from the Foundation. I'm going to study family law, Tommy announced suddenly. Like Rachel, I want to help other kids who go through what I did. Mason pulled his son close, emotion tightening his throat. You're already helping them, buddy. Your strength shows them they can survive too. Tommy looked out over the gathering, where families broken by manipulation were finding new connections, new understanding, new hope. You know what real power is, Dad? He asked thoughtfully. It's not about destroying your enemies. It's about building something so strong they can't touch you anymore. Mason smiled, his arm around Rachel, watching their extended family, Jenny and Brad, Diane and her children, even his parents working to earn back trust, interact with the Foundation's members. The ruthlessness that had driven his revenge had transformed into something more powerful, the fierce determination to protect what truly mattered. The Hayes name now stood for something greater than social standing or business success. It represented resilience, truth, and the unshakable bonds of chosen family. As the Foundation's first major fundraiser concluded, Mason realized that their story had become more than a tale of revenge. It was a testament to healing, to the power of truth over manipulation, and to the enduring strength of real family bonds. The setting sun painted the Montana sky in brilliant colors, but Mason's focus remained on the people around him, the family they'd built from the ashes of betrayal, stronger and more genuine than anything their enemies had tried to destroy. Epilogue. 10 years later, Tommy Hayes stood at the podium of Harvard Law School's graduation ceremony, his valedictorian speech drawing to a close. At 24, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had transformed past pain into purpose. Our experiences shape us, but they don't define us, he addressed his fellow graduates. 10 years ago, I was a child caught in a web of family manipulation and betrayal. Today, I stand here having turned that pain into a mission. The Children's Future Foundation has helped thousands of families break free from cycles of parental alienation. As we leave these halls to begin our legal careers, remember, the law isn't just about justice. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. Mason and Rachel Hayes sat in the audience, pride evident on their faces. Their marriage had grown stronger over the decade, their shared commitment to helping others deepening their bond. Hayes International had expanded across the country, but its most significant impact came through the foundation they'd established. Rachel's legal expertise had shaped the Foundation's advocacy work. Under her guidance, they'd successfully lobbied for stronger laws protecting children from parental alienation. Her team of attorneys, specializing in family law, provided pro bono services to families caught in similar situations to Tommy's childhood. He's really something, isn't he? Mason whispered to Rachel as they watched their son accept his diploma. Their daughter Emily, now 8, bounced excitedly in her seat between them. Born 2 years after their marriage, she represented the healing and joy that had come after the darkness. After the ceremony, they gathered for a family celebration at a nearby restaurant. Jenny and Brad Wilson were there with their twin boys, now 7. Their investigative reporting on parental alienation had evolved into a nationally recognized advocacy journalism program, training reporters to cover family court issues with sensitivity and depth. "Remember when we thought we were just working on one story?" Brad asked, watching their sons play with Emily. His relationship with Jenny had blossomed from professional collaboration into a deep partnership, their shared commitment to exposing truth bringing them together. Jenny laughed, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. "Who knew your attempt to write a hit piece on my brother would lead to all this?" Diane Cooper arrived with Amy, Jack, and Katie, Sarah and Ryan's children, now grown into thoughtful young adults. The emergency custody arrangement had evolved over the years, with Diane providing the stable home their parents couldn't. Amy, at 22, had followed Tommy's path in advocacy work. She ran the Foundation's youth outreach program, using her own experience to help other children navigate complex family dynamics. Jack, 20, studied psychology, inspired by Andrea Martinez's role in helping Tommy heal. Katie, 18, had just started college planning to become a social worker. Uncle Mason, Amy hugged him tight. "The Foundation's new campus is amazing. We're already at capacity with summer programs for affected families." The Children's Future Foundation had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as a way to help families affected by parental alienation had expanded into a comprehensive support network. The main campus, built on what used to be the Hayes Family Ranch, provided temporary housing, counseling services, and educational programs for families in transition. Andrea Martinez, now the Foundation's head of psychological services, joined them at the restaurant. Her early work with Tommy had evolved into a groundbreaking therapy program for children affected by family manipulation. She'd published several influential papers on the psychological impact of parental alienation, with Tommy's case, shared with permission, as a cornerstone of her research. "How are the new therapy groups going?" Tommy asked her, genuinely interested in the Foundation's work despite his law school commitments. "We're seeing remarkable progress," Andrea replied. "Your father's idea to include supervised family reconstruction therapy is showing promising results." Marcus and Lisa Rodriguez arrived next. Their marriage 5 years ago had surprised no one who knew them. They'd continued working together, Lisa's real estate expertise helping the Foundation acquire properties for expansion, while Marcus's security firm protected vulnerable families during high-conflict custody situations. "The new safe exchange centers are operational in 15 states now," Marcus reported. His company had developed specialized protocols for supervised visitation and custody exchanges, setting the industry standard for family security services. Derek Walsh, still serving as sheriff, attended with his wife. His department had become a model for handling family court enforcement, with officers receiving specialized training in dealing with parental alienation cases. The protocols he'd developed with Mason's help had been adopted by law enforcement agencies nationwide. Richard and Linda Hayes arrived last, their presence a testament to the possibility of change. Years of therapy and genuine remorse had slowly rebuilt their relationship with Tommy. They'd never regained their former social status, but they'd found something more valuable: authentic connection with their family. "Tommy," Linda approached her grandson cautiously, still mindful of their past. "Your speech was beautiful." "Thanks, Grandma," Tommy replied warmly. Their relationship had taken years to repair, but his capacity for forgiveness, carefully balanced with healthy boundaries, had allowed for healing. Richard, more subdued than in his social prime, watched his family with different eyes. "Mason," he said quietly to his son, "you built something remarkable here. Something real." Mason nodded, acknowledging both the compliment and the unspoken recognition of past wrongs. "We all did, Dad. Sometimes you have to tear something down to build it back stronger." The conversation turned to news of Sarah and Ryan. Their attempts to rebuild their lives had largely failed. The evidence of their actions, preserved through Brad's reporting and court records, followed them across state lines. They tried to spin their story through social media and self-published books, but their versions fell flat against the documented truth. Last reports placed them in different states. Sarah working real estate in Florida, Ryan taking construction jobs in Nevada. Their attempts to contact their children were handled through the Foundation's supervised communication program, ensuring any relationship rebuilding happened on the children's terms. They still don't really understand what they did wrong, Amy commented, her voice free of bitterness. But that's not our burden anymore. As the evening wound down, Tommy shared his plans. He'd accepted a position with a prestigious law firm, but would continue working with the Foundation. Several law schools had expressed interest in his research on reforming family court procedures to better protect children's interests. The Foundation's expanding its legal advocacy division, he explained. We're seeing more courts recognize parental alienation as a form of child abuse. The precedents we're setting are changing how these cases are handled. Rachel beamed with pride. Her mentorship had helped shape Tommy's legal approach, but his own experiences gave him unique insight into the human cost of family court battles. The conversation shifted to the Foundation's future plans. They were developing international partnerships, sharing their models for family protection and rehabilitation. The Hayes name, once synonymous with Montana's social status, now represented hope and healing for families worldwide. Mason watched his extended family, biological and chosen, interact with deep satisfaction. Emily climbed into Tommy's lap, asking about his plans to visit during his law firm orientation. Jenny's twins played with Amy's tablet, exploring the Foundation's new child-friendly website. Katie showed Linda photos from her first college semester, their relationship slowly warming through shared interests in art and design. Did you ever imagine this? Rachel asked softly, leaning against Mason's shoulder. When you first came back to Montana, did you think it would lead here? Mason thought back to those dark days, when revenge had driven his carefully laid plans. No, he admitted. I thought I was fighting to destroy them. Turns out we were building something instead. Tommy joined them, Emily still perched on his knee. The Foundation's getting 3 new cases next week, he said. Families who heard about us through the Harvard Law Clinic. They need help documenting the alienation patterns. We'll handle it, Mason assured him. That's what we're here for. Later that night, as the celebration wound down, the family gathered for photos. Marcus's security team had maintained subtle surveillance throughout the evening. Old habits died hard, and protecting their extended family had become second nature. You know what I realized? Tommy said to his father as they watched the others leave. That night at the ranch, when I asked about real power, I was right, but I didn't understand how right. Building something stronger than their hatred. That's what we did. Not just for us, but for thousands of others. Mason hugged his son, remembering the scared 8-year-old who'd faced rejection from his own grandparents. You built a lot of it yourself, buddy. I just got things started. Rachel joined them, Emily sleeping in her arms. Next week's board meeting is going to be interesting, she said. The new legislative proposal is ready for review. The one about mandatory psychological evaluations in high-conflict custody cases? Tommy asked. I've been reviewing similar laws in other states. I think we can make this one stronger. They walked to their cars together, the Harvard campus quiet around them. The Hayes family had transformed from victims of manipulation to architects of change, their personal healing expanding to help others find their own paths to recovery. In his hotel room that night, Mason reflected on the decade's journey. The ruthlessness that had driven his revenge had evolved into something more powerful. The determination to protect families from experiencing what they had endured. The Foundation's work, Tommy's legal career, the support network they'd built. It was all part of a legacy built on turning pain into purpose. Tomorrow, they would return to Montana, where the Foundation's main campus hummed with activity. New families arrived seeking help, staff members developed innovative support programs, and the next generation of advocates trained to continue their work. The Hayes name had indeed been redefined, not by social status or business success, but by the thousands of lives they'd helped rebuild. The perfect revenge, Mason realized, hadn't been destroying his enemies. It had been creating something so meaningful that their attempts to harm his family became footnotes in a much larger story of healing and hope. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end.